Howdy, folks. Welcome to Mindful MX365. I'm Justin McBride, and this is the daily series where we consider quotes, concepts, and contradictions that support us on our journey of experiencing life mindfully. Today's consideration comes from Jack Kornfield's book, Buddha's Little Instruction Book. His quote is, "If compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete." Again, this quote from Jack Kornfield, "If compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete." All right, I'm going to do a few intentional breaths before we get going on today's consideration. I'm going to close my eyes. Take a nice breath in and out. Another breath in and out. Last breath in and out. A recap of today's quote of consideration: if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. I really appreciate Jack's words there, talking about self-compassion and how compassion without self-compassion, meaning compassion for others only without compassion for self, is really incomplete. And I agree with that 100%, because I don't know how I could be compassionate, truly be compassionate, for someone else without being or having compassion for myself. Because it's through that understanding and that compassion of my own internal struggles that I'm able to understand the struggles of others. And I don't know if this is a concept that I always fully understood. And not that I was a bad person and that I, was trying to have compassion before I had compassion for myself. So I just, was a bad person and I couldn't really be understanding of them. I could begin to understand where someone else was coming from. But I think until I truly had compassion for my own struggles, I wasn't truly having compassion for others. And now some of you right now might be saying, well, Justin, how are you going to understand someone's pain associated with a miscarriage, perhaps, which is a really tough struggle. I can only imagine. I can't understand that directly, what that struggle itself feels like, but I can try to relate to similar emotions that I guess are in the same world or are in the same category of struggle. Because when it comes to struggle or suffering, we do have different categories, I think, of suffering. And you can get very specific in an instance of suffering, but there are general categories of suffering. Compassion and mindfulness, I think, go hand in hand. Are they the same? I don't think they are. But I think it is possible to be mindful without having or exercising compassion. Do I think it's possible to have compassion without being mindful? I don't think so. That's probably a whole nother topic, a whole other thing to consider. We could keep going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole of topics to consider, and maybe that's something we will do at some point in a longer video or podcast. Just open it up for a rabbit hole of consideration. Thanks for joining me for today's episode. If you want to keep the conversation going or you have another rabbit hole you want to go down, head on over to www.mindfulx.net. This is our free from ads and free to join platform where you can offer your own insights and find support on experiencing life mindfully. Again, I'm Justin McBride, and remember, mindfulness is only a few intentional breaths away. I'm going to do a little intentional breathing myself. I'm going to close my eyes, make sure my head is placed above my shoulders. I invite you to join me. When I'm done, I'm not going to say anything or distract you with any loud noises, so feel free to join me and perhaps use this as a starting off point for a meditation or a longer session of intentional breathing. I'm going to take my first intentional breath in for 5 seconds and pausing at the top of my breath as I let it out for 5 seconds. And right before I begin my next intentional breath, I'm going to pause it in between as well. And then this is just a way of me being a little more intentional about my breaths and intentional about the pacing of the breath as well. First breath in and out. Hold it and in and out. Now on our own, breath in